wisdom,
prudentia,
justice,
justitia,
temperance,
temperantia,
courage.
fortitudo.
Applying ancient philosophy to modern life, this is the Sunday Stoic.
Welcome to the Sunday Stoic podcast. This is Steve, and today it is my great pleasure to interview Karen Duffy, the author of Backbone, Living with Chronic Pain Without Turning Into One. Karen has been an MTV VJ, model, she's been in several films, but was diagnosed in the mid-90s with sarcoidosis, a disease that has left her in chronic pain. We'll talk a bit about her career, about sarcoidosis, and how she uses non-monumental moments of happiness, as well as the service of others, to thrive in the face of chronic pain. Today's guest is our first bona fide celebrity, unless you count Donald Robertson. Karen Duffy is, well, let me just leave it to you, Duff. You have had quite a career. You've been a model, an MTV VJ. You've acted in several films, including my brother's favorite film. Can you guess what that might be?
Dumb and Dumber?
You are correct. And you're a hockey mom as well. Is that correct?
Yes, I am. And I just want to say thank you very much for having me on. And Steve, you and I are united in the fact that we look at Donald Robertson as a celebrity. So thank you so much for having me on. And I've really been enjoying listening to your podcast. It's been such a bright light in the morning when I get up and go for a walk, and to, hear the way you're able to take such kind of complicated ideas and have them in such clarity. You really have a gift for that.
I appreciate that. I don't know if my students will agree with you. We've been covering photosynthesis this week. That's a complicated topic in its own right. But you're also an author.
Yes.
You've written a book, Model Patient, My Life as an Incurable Wise Ass, and Backbone, Living with Chronic Pain Without Turning Into One. You also have a book on cooking, don't you?
Yes, I do, called A Slob in the Kitchen. And it's funny, I think for each of the books that I've written, Model Patient, which was my first book, I really wanted to kind of explain what it was like, as we discussed earlier. I was very fortunate as a young woman living in New York City. I actually started my career as a recreational therapist working in a nursing home. And I loved it. I'd been volunteering at a nursing home since I was about 12 years old. And I went to college and got my degree and postgrad in recreational therapy. And I moved back home to New York City and was working at the nursing home where I began as a volunteer when I was 12. And my experiences working with a geriatric population where my elocution had to be on point, and I had to learn skills and techniques so that people with dementia and low attention spans would be able to pay attention to me. And when I started modeling, I was like, okay, I kind of felt like I snuck into a party and I was going to get kicked out. I figured, well, what has a little bit longevity? And MTV was right in New York City, and I sent in a audition tape. And what was interesting is that all the skills that I used in the nursing home, actually made me a better MTV VJ. And at that point, everyone was saying that MTV was diminishing people's attention spans. So I think my goal with every book that I write, or every essay and article, is to kind of explain, maybe I'm figuring out things in my head and then kind of publishing it and put it in the world.
Well, I'd say there's an important lesson there. You never know how the skills you're learning now will be applied later in new projects.
Exactly. I believe that all skills are transferable. And like you said to your students who are learning photosynthesis, this will be an unbelievable wealth of knowledge when you're having dinner over a salad, or, you're walking through a garden and, or through a forest, just to remember that, I try and take every opportunity to be less stupid. And I think that is what I've learned from all of the books that I've written, is I am just trying to make myself less stupid. And I love to fill it with like crazy. Every page, I want to have a fact and a laugh on every page.
That's an excellent motto, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. I feel the same way. I try to read when I can, but also get away from screens and get out into the woods and just decompress as well is very important.
It's interesting. My son, as I'm a hockey mom, my son plays hockey up at a boarding school in Connecticut, and it's in the Berkshire Mountains. And what's really interesting, as a teenager, he does not have the dependence on a cell phone because they don't get reception up there. So it's this unbelievable gift. And when we're together in New York, he said, he said it kind of an interesting quote. He said, I just find that a cell phone can be infantilizing and somewhat neutering. And that if I'm attached to your digital apron strings all the time, how am I going to learn to be a man? And I was like, wow, like it's amazing that when, you put some intellectual firepower behind it, you can really, a small idea of the fact that, cell phone service is unreliable has now opened up this idea to him that, maybe he's better off.
Yeah, exactly. As we have found out this morning, Skype can be unreliable as well.
Exactly. I know. Well, I think that Aristotle said, the problem is we don't expect that there will be problems. And I think that is so true, especially dealing with technology. What's really, I do find it infantilizing because when I can't, like when I couldn't get connected to you, I did feel like somewhat panicked. And like, I think that I almost reverted back about a few decades to like a child. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to get this done. It felt like I was taking a math test. Like,
right.
I gave myself like this surge of anxiety because I couldn't connect with you. And I think that, that's an interesting thing. And I think what we share with our admiration for the Stoics is that we can kind of step back and look at our behavior, and it's usually pretty funny.
You're right. Yes. And I'm so glad we did get connected, and I heartily welcome you to the podcast.
Thank you very much. I look forward to listening to many more Sunday Stoics with you.
So let's get in our DeLorean here and go back in time for a moment to the mid to early, or was it mid 90s when you first started noticing the symptoms that we're going to talk a little bit about?
It's interesting. Yes, I live with a condition called sarcoidosis of the central nervous system. And yes, I was in my early 30s when I started noticing it, around 95, 96. And to the point where I noticed it where I could no longer function, and actually went into the hospital.
Wow.
And I think prior to that, looking back over the course of years, there may have been, smaller symptoms that I just kind of thought, oh, these will resolve. But what happened was I have a disease, sarcoidosis, in my central nervous system. And what sarcoidosis does is it is an autoimmune inflammatory disease of unknown origin. It's actually an orphan disease. And it's the cells in your body, and it can attack any cell or system in your body that has soft tissue. So brain, skin, lung, organ tissue, anywhere except bones and teeth.
Wow.
So I have it in my brain. And as this granuloma, they're not tumors, they're called granulomas because they are like crystals, grew so large that it pressed on the nerves and your skull is a contained environment, that it just destroyed all these nerves in my brain and spinal column, which impacts the feeling. I have no feeling in my hands or feet, which is why dealing with a telephone is very difficult for me, because when you don't have any feeling, the touch tones don't work.
Sure.
So I've been living with sarcoidosis for about 20 years now.
So what was life like as what were you doing at the time? Were you on TV at that time? What was life like?
Yes. When I got sick, it was I was working at MTV as a VJ, and I was in movies. Your brother's favorite movie, Dumb and Dumber, and several Woody Allen films. And I was working on a television show with Michael Moore called TV Nation.
Right.
And so I kind of felt like I was really at things were really coming together for me. Like most things, you can't plan when you're going to have a major health crisis. It's really interesting. When I first got sick, I actually was at the Emmy Awards, that was on a Sunday night. And I was with a buddy of mine who won, and I was like, wow, like my head is really hurting. Did we drink champagne? I just don't get it. And he was like, no. And so the next morning, I flew from LA back to New York City and went right to the doctor's right from the airport. And he took one look at me and sent me right to the hospital. Wow. So it was kind of crazy how there are all these photos of me as a young woman with George Clooney at the Emmys. And I literally like got on the first plane after that event, flew to New York, and my life, kind of as my old life ended and a whole new life began. And so it's been really interesting because at that point in my career, it felt like I had just built a plane, built it by hand, and I was ready to take it off. And right when I was ready to fly it, I had to actually put it back into the hangar on the tarmac and take care of my physical body. And that took about 7 years. I
would imagine that comes with not only the hardship of dealing with the physical pain, but then the disappointment and the emotional uncertainty and pain of being pretty sure where you were going, and then suddenly, as Marcus Aurelius might say, you have an obstacle and trying to make the obstacle become the way. Like, what do I do now? That must be very difficult.
Well, I think when you have no other option, I was on chemo for many years, and what happened was I was a model, and I would say that chemotherapy and steroids are no beauty treatment. And so what I was making most of my money on, which was my outward, what I looked like, that was already good. That was always hanging on by a thread, but getting sick, losing my hair, getting a hunchback, getting what's called Cushing syndrome, when you take steroids and your face kind of puffs up like a football. I really couldn't, do any of that. And I wanted to come clean to Revlon. And I was the Charlie girl in the face for Almay Cosmetics. And I was like, listen, I am not the person you hired. And so I just want you to know I won't be able to kind of fulfill the contract. And what was amazing in that moment of honesty, where everybody told me not to tell and just take as much money as I could from Revlon, the company was like, you know, we hired you for inner beauty, which is an interesting thing for a cosmetics company to say.
I'd say
and
so.
they kept me on for another 10 years
Wow.
as a spokeswoman about women's health care. So, so that was honesty was an upside. But I think, you know, it's true when we lose something, we often have to, find something else. And I was able to kind of go back to my interest in Stoicism. When I was sick, I think the book that I read the most was Meditations by Marcus Aurelius and Viktor Frankl. And those were my two constant companions that gave me the strength to say, no matter what, I'm going to be okay with this.
Right. How did you first find Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics? How did you discover them?
It was interesting because I've always been a big reader, and someone gave me a collection. They were called from the Penguin imprint, and they were called Penguin 50p's. They were Penguin 50 pence, and Penguin released hundreds of these small classics that could fit in your pocket. Okay. And the idea was that you could read it on the subway. So I got an entire collection of the classics, and I just started keeping them in my bag and just reading them. And when I got to Marcus Aurelius, it was like every synapse was firing, and I was like, oh, I get this, which then led me to possibly my favorite book in the Stoic canon, which is by Epictetus, The Art of Living. And I would say Epictetus is my main man.
Is that the I think I'm familiar with that translation. It's a very good read.
Yes, it's the interpretation by Sharon LaBelle.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I've found it very, very readable and so much so accessible that I've given it as presents.
That's funny. You know, I have actually I love this Sharon LaBelle edition so much, and I have the original Epictetus ones. And but I will tell you that I buy this book like by the tens. When I go to the Strand bookstores, one of our country's best bookstores, they have 4 miles of books. And I just go into the philosophy section and I will just buy 10 copies of this because it is such a book that I think that is accessible to everyone. Each page just has a handful of sentences, but the clarity of Sharon LaBelle interpreting Epictetus is just incredible. You know, it was funny. The other day, I met with Donald Robertson and Massimo Pugliacci. I met Donald for lunch, and we were talking about our love for Epictetus. And do you know what that name Epictetus means?
Something like acquired one or something, isn't it?
Yes. And so we were debating, good job, Steve. We were debating whether or not his name was Epictetus acquired because he was a slave and was acquired, or because of the knowledge he acquired. And I would say it was a draw.
That would be interesting to have a one-on-one with Donald and Massimo. That's pretty cool. I thought about
it was really cool.
I thought about trying to beg my patrons to help send me to Greece for Stoicon so I could hang out there, but I decided to stay here and teach instead.
Well, you know what? Like I'm thinking about going next year, and we're thinking about doing one in New York, so possibly we can get you to New York, which may be a little bit easier.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, we'll sell Girl Scout cookies. We'll find some way to get you on a Greyhound.
I'll be there. We'll sell Marcus Aurelius cookies or something. Yeah.
Yeah, we could sell the Art of Living books.
There you go. Yeah, we'll just mark them up a little bit and Yeah, I think this could work. This could work.
Yes.
So let's go to the present. For those of us who can't fully grasp, I know a guy who was in the Korean War and the Vietnam War, okay? And he talks about things he saw, and I sit at his feet going, oh my gosh, but I can never understand what it was like. And I feel the same thing with chronic pain. I know what pain is, but having chronic pain, so far in my life, I've not experienced. How well are you able to keep it under control, pharmaceutically speaking? Let's start there.
Well, it's interesting. I think we all, we have an idea of what pain is, but chronic pain is, there's a saying that there's pain that hurts you and pain that changes you. And chronic pain changes you. And the word chronic comes from the Greek chronos, meaning time. So acute pain, and that comes from acu, meaning sharp. Acute pain is an injury where where it's a broken bone or tissue damage, a burn, something that's usually visible, and it lasts it lasts up until 3 months. Chronic pain goes from 3 months to perpetuity. And the idea is that chronic pain is essentially timeless. It has no end. And so I take heavy prescriptions. I take morphine, and I wear a pain patch, a lidocaine patch on my neck, just to kind of calm the nerves. Because what's happening is this large granuloma has destroyed the nerves, and my body's constantly sending a signal like there's a problem here. So it's constantly setting this alarm. And one night I was out to dinner and I was wearing my pain patch, and this guy I'd never met before said, what's that patch for? I said, well, I live with chronic pain. And he said, well, what's it like? And we were out in the countryside in the Berkshires, and there were mosquitoes flying. And I was like, well, when you get a mosquito bite and it itches, so you scratch it. And so when you scratch it, you are essentially distracting yourself from the itch with the low-level pain of the scratch. And I think when you live in chronic pain for every minute of your life, I am always looking for low-level happiness, low-level ways to make my life more meaningful, more joyful. And that's the way I manage it, and that's the way I live with it.
So what are some of those everyday low-level happiness events that help you along?
Well, for instance, I love drinking tea. I love reading. I feel when you live with, we all live with, we never know when our last day will be.
Right. But
I think when you live with chronic pain and you have a good enough day where you can actually put on shoes and go out in the world, I really try and make it count. And I really believe in the quality of what I call like non-monumental moments of happiness, these non-monumental exchanges. Like I just had to run down because I have neuropathy in my hands and I can't operate my new cell phone, my new iPhone. So I had to go run down to the doorman and ask him if he could please type in your number. And I just thanked him and just ran up. And so my life is full of these tiny moments where I say good morning to the fruit vendor. I have a relationship when I walk my dog, of all the people that I stop and say hello with. There's a homeless lady who lives downstairs on the street, and I bring her clothes and food and coffee. And, I just try and really feel like I am present and that I can maybe give something of myself because I feel that is what gives my life purpose and meaning.
So cultivating gratitude would be a big part of that.
Oh, absolutely. And it was interesting. I heard Vice President Joe Biden speak my friend lost a child in the Sandy Hook massacre.
Oh my goodness.
And she is become a real agent for change.
Mm-hmm.
And Vice President Biden spoke at this dinner, and he spoke about purpose. And he said, in life, we need our purpose. And in finding our purpose, that is having something to love, something to do, and something to look forward to. And I thought, well, that certainly makes finding your purpose seem a lot easier when you just break it down into 3 steps.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes that simplicity is profound.
Yes.
Something just popped into my head. Speaking of gratitude and the people around us that we can be thankful for, before I forget, my friend John was a big MTV fan back in the day, and he says hi.
Oh, okay. Well, please send your friend John my very best.
I will. There you go. Now his day is made.
As is mine. That's nice to hear. I've got to say, it is nice to hear, because I have a son, and like when I'm walking around with him, he's like, "How do all these people know you?" And I was like, "Well, I was like," he's like, "But MTV doesn't really exist." Like, he just has no idea what a VJ would be, as the video jockey has gone the way of the buggy whip maker.
Right.
But what's funny is, I guess when we were working there, we all thought it was limitless. We thought, oh, this is going to go on forever. No, but all of the tapes that we taped our shows on, we just reuse them over and over again. So there is no real evidence of me having ever been on MTV.
Well, it's much like the Stoics. We only have a few writings of the Stoics left from a once great library of thought, and now we're down to what's left, and I guess that makes us cherish what's left all the better.
But also, yes, exactly. But also, what I love too about Stoicism is, people like you and Massimo, Donald, Ryan Holiday, Dr. Sharon LaBelle. That there is such modernism encapsulated in this ancient school of wisdom, and I love that it's really it's electrifying to see people, attending the modern Stoics conferences. And I went to a conference that Massimo was speaking at the School of Ethical Culture, and it was standing room only. And why do you think now it is being so, there's having such a moment in Stoicism?
I wonder if it's just the fact that maybe it's always been this way, but things feel uncertain and finding a coping mechanism perhaps. But one thing I found interesting, though, is people have been practicing Stoicism forever. A lot of well-known people were very much influenced by them. It's just it wasn't necessarily talked about in the direct way we do now, with a podcast, for example. Teddy Roosevelt and many athletes and things have utilized this philosophy, but now it's spilling the banks into the public at large, and perhaps it is that uncertainty, the feeling of a loss of control, and an overwhelm of information and an overwhelm of political uncertainty that's we can find solace in this fortification that is Stoicism, perhaps.
Yes, I think there's a real comfort in the simplicity, and that it is illuminating because it's so relatable.
Yeah, it's, as you said, it's so modern for being so old. When you read it, you can relate to it immediately.
Yes, I like it. And I also love, like, it's, focuses on, on virtues, happiness, moral courage. And those are all components of, what I hope to accomplish in my life. And I think that it is, ideas don't count unless you take action.
Sure.
And what I love about Stoicism is that, like, you can act immediately to, take steps to live a more morally awakened, vigorous life.
And you're encouraged to. Why put off tomorrow the good that you could do now?
Yes.
And so you do that. You're cultivating gratitude and enjoying perhaps mindfully your tea and thankful for those around you, and you're helping people around you.
And I think that's a huge part. I had a cousin who was a New York City police officer, and he was killed on the job. There were 28 people being held hostage, and my cousin was, put his life on the line and died, and was murdered. And I was a little kid, and I will just never forget. As I've been growing up, I've had this shadow of my cousin, and he was only 26 when he died, and I was maybe 5 or 6. And I just kept thinking, how can I honor, Tim's sacrifice? He never got to live, to see his children grow up or to be and I just thought, you know what, in one small way, I'm going to write a thank you letter every single day. And so that's one way I express my gratitude and try and honor the life of Tim. And so I just buy postcards, and when I read about somebody in the newspaper or I hear about something, I just write a postcard, and I don't have my return address because it comes without the burden of reciprocity. The idea isn't to create a pen pal, but I just want to say thank you to somebody in the world.
Wow.
And so that's a habit that I do every day.
Have those habits then helped you deal with, live with chronic pain?
Absolutely, Steve, because I'm always about 3 days a week, I have to take such powerful medication that I honestly can't get dressed. I can't even have air or anything touch my neck. And so on these days when I am housebound, I don't just make a couch fort and watch Netflix all day. These are the days that I do a lot of reading, and these are the days where I, cultivate that list of people that I'm going to say thank you for, and I thank you too. And often when I'm looking for people to thank, I am just inflated with a sense of gratitude. So this habit has really has become something that I get a lot out of. There is no pure altruism because I'm, reading about people who've done great things, and Congressman Elijah Cummings just died this morning. So
right.
On my list, I'm going to write a letter to his wife and thank you for being a great partner to this amazing man. And so just small things. But I think having a habit of small ways to make your life feel more meaningful helps you feel better about living a somewhat compromised life.
I know that Stoicism, one of the big techniques is altering your perspective, or perhaps it's just stepping away from the funhouse mirror that we often look into and we have a distorted view, but we alter our perspective. And for example, switching from, I have this problem to, hey, I still have this to be happy about and I can still contribute in this way, and focusing on that rather than, I could imagine that someone with one thing I wanted to ask you about is someone with chronic pain, also has to deal with potential mental health issues from dealing with that chronic pain.
Absolutely.
And so,
it's interesting. The English word, pain is rooted in the Latin pona, which means punishment or penalty. So chronic pain, in a way, is like serving a life sentence. It's a punishment for a crime you didn't commit. And I think practicing the Stoic virtues gratitude, and, just really that has, I believe that my strong faith and my belief in Stoic philosophy has really helped me from not falling into a pit of despair, because you have to miss a lot. I mean, when I'm stuck inside 3 days out of 7. Sometimes it's longer. Sometimes it has been months. Wow. And what's interesting about pain is that pain, it hurts, but it also destroys language. It's really, when you're in pain, you can barely speak. You're like, it can be so overwhelming that that there can be some real isolation because there are times that you can't speak, and it's also so difficult to describe. So I find I am connected to all these incredible entombed minds in my books and in writing letters, and so I feel like I do have a connection to the world, even when I'm somewhat out of it.
What advice would you give to someone who is beginning a journey similar to the one you have been on for the last several years? So if someone's just been diagnosed, they're trying to figure out, they had big plans, they were going to be this, they were going to do that, and now everything's uncertain, and they're dealing with some sort of chronic illness, chronic pain.
The first thing I would do, it would be read philosophy. And most importantly, what you referred to earlier, Steve, is the fact that we all can't do everything, but there's something that we can do. Mother Teresa said, we all can't do great things, but we can do small things with great love. And I find just being connected to the world and writing letters. I'm a chaplain at the hospital. Just small acts of service. That's, it's in giving that we feel most alive. And and I would say, don't isolate yourself. There's an amazing community with the U.S. Pain Foundation. The amazing thing is that there are 30 million people in the U.S. who live with chronic pain, chronic intractable pain. So you're not alone. And I work as an advocate, and I speak to people who are dealing with chronic pain. That's just part of my day, or chronic illness. Part of my day is just, I've been there and I'm living through it and sharing that. I think one of the great things to know is that resilience is often a component of illness, and that the most important things is that, I think it was C.S. Lewis who said that hardships prepare ordinary people for extraordinary destiny, and that pain and illness can't take away the things that really matter in life, and that's gratitude, self-respect, resilience. So I would just say reach out to somebody else, and I'm always available through the U.S. Pain Foundation. So if anyone's listening, and I will be your wingman.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you. Where can folks go if they want to help?
Oh, yes. The Foundation for Sarcoidosis research is fantastic. And they are very grateful for any money for research. But also, what I really love, Steve, is that almost all of these foundations have pen pal programs. So you can, reach out and either through email or through old U.S. Post. Another way is again, I find meaning in small acts of service. And there's an amazing organization called Foster Care to Success. And they have a mentor program where you mentor a child who has aged out of foster care and is in school. And then you mentor them, twice a month over Facebook Live. And it's a really very inspiring way to share your time and share your knowledge. That's good for everybody.
That would be great for everybody.
Be a mentor.
I'll try to put links to all of these in the show description so folks can find those easily. Let's talk about the future. What other projects are you currently involved in that we can look forward to?
Well, my newest book, Backbone, is coming out in paperback, and that's been a bestseller, Amazon #1 bestseller. And my first book, Model Patient, is a New York Times bestseller. I have a new book that I'm working on that'll be out in 2020. Doesn't quite have a title.
Okay.
One amazing thing is because I'm somewhat restricted physically, and I have a son, I would hire male babysitters to come and roughhouse with my kid because I couldn't. And one of my son's babysitters was going to film school, and he became a part of the family, and we have a film production company, and we made a short documentary. It's called The Greatest Beer Run Ever. It's on YouTube. Okay. And it's an amazing story that my friend Andrew and I were at a party, and we were talking to a journalist. And Andrew asked a great question. He said, "What is the greatest story that you never reported on?" And she told us the story, which we tell in The Greatest Beer Run Ever, is that this guy, Chicky Donahue, in 1967, had served in the U.S. Army. And when he got back to the Inwood section of Manhattan, his 4 best friends that were all 18 to about 21 had all been drafted. And he just kept saying, all I wanted when I was in Vietnam was an ice cold Pabst Blue Ribbon. And he one night was in his cups and said, I'm going to go back and I'm going to bring some beer to our boys. So he filled a duffel bag filled with Pabst Blue Ribbon and got on a munition ship and went to Vietnam and found all 4 of his best friends and then got stuck during the Tet Offensive.
Oh my.
So it's a beautiful story about valor and courage and how far you go for a friend. And the amazing thing is my buddy Pete Farrelly, who directed Dumb and Dumber, right after his new movie was out called Green Book, he was like, Duff, you haven't been returning my calls. And I was like, what's up? And he said, hey, I saw that doc that you did, and I'm going to turn it into my next feature.
Whoa.
So actually next in November, we start pre-production on The Greatest Beer Run Ever with Peter Farrelly directing, which is going to be amazing. And that will be out probably in about 2021.
Okay, excellent. Well, we'll look forward to that.
Yeah, you know what? One of the things is like when you've had a great experience in life and somebody's really, Peter Farrelly was a huge inspiration, seeing him, Pete used to sell round beach towels in California. So you didn't have to get up and move your body around the sun. That's what he was doing to raise money to do Dumb and Dumber, his first film. And I just always admired his spirit and the fact that he got things done. And, I let him know how much I admired him. We became really good friends. When the movie was made, he gave me a part. So I think a really important thing is have mentors and also stay in touch with them. Take those steps to let people know that you're thinking about them.
Excellent advice. Well, Duff, I really appreciate you joining the podcast today.
Thank you, Steve.
I'm in awe of all the things you do.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, and I look forward to seeing you at the next Stoic gathering.
Oh, I look forward to it as well.
Hey, and thank you for all you do with sharing the knowledge with your podcast. I really appreciate it.